There's a fine line between helping those you love and carrying what was never supposed to be yours. One gives support without taking away your responsibility, but the other one takes your voice, your personhood, and replaces it entirely with somebody else's. If you've ever been in between a conflict between people that you love and people that you thought loved you, and you started to feel like a puppet for their control or responsible for how a certain relationship turns out, then you may relate to this, because I know that being at the mercy of a situation, almost involuntarily, and being coerced into commitments you never fully understood, they all leave you with little substance of your own, and it turns you into a tool. This pattern of behavior, this people-pleasing, this anxious attachment style, it all starts differently for everyone. But for me, I remember there was a relative in my life who I admired growing up. I would have lunch at their house often. He was significantly older than me, and so he'd give me the classic lectures about life from his experience, and I would enjoy his stories, A lot of interesting businesses, a lot of interesting endeavors, a lot of places and people he've met. He was a mentor for me, and I had lots of respect for him. But as time went on, the conversation started to shift, and this relative would tell me about other relatives, and how one person was wronged, and why certain people in the family were estranged, and why the relationships that I always wondered or was curious about were broken. Shortly after this, he would start asking me to say things or do things on behalf of himself. Not only this, but since it's hearing these stories from a one-sided perspective, I would hear seemingly horrible things about people whom I knew and loved and had treated me with respect for my whole life. And so this kind of made me question a lot of things, On one side I felt bad for this certain relative, but on the other side, I was curious as to whether these stories were completely true, and why is it that these people haven't tried to resolve the conflict themselves. But to sum it up, I was always being told to be an advocate for a certain person, and to take what I now see as the burden of all things they never said or did onto myself. For example, telling other relatives about his own situation and how he felt wronged in the relationship, and how he believes that they owe him an apology. Now again, me being quite young, I felt obligated to act on their behalf. After all, this is a person I spent lots of moments with. They did a lot of things for me. Gave me lots of food during school lunch. Gave me lots of good advice that I still follow to this day. But something always just seemed off. And unfortunately, I didn't quite see the full picture back then, or how this kind of behavior would affect things in the future. So, at the time, I accepted this role, this mediator, this middleman position, and I dismissed myself, offering myself up completely for service. The line was crossed, and even though it was a tiny moment in the grand scheme of things, I was signaling that I was okay with the dynamic. But once again, I was painfully unaware of the consequences that would come. A major moment in this relationship was when I started to think about the role I was in. And after lots of acting in this very role, and not much progress for these broken relationships I was mediating between, I expressed to my relative that I wasn't content with the way things were. And I felt an immense pressure over me, trying to regulate things for so long, and that I would no longer try to do things in this manner for him. And even though there was agreeance in the moment, as time went on, the dynamic did not stop, and I had to take a step back from the relationship. And after this was over, because of all the people I interacted with, because of, this all happening during my formative years, let's say, I was left with a way of resolving conflict and a way of conversating with people that was very anxious, always feeling guilty, and a sense of obligation and responsibility to other people's needs, other people's emotions. And it came to a point where this blended into my other relationships and my own ability to function without the expectations and situations of others. So you can see that what starts out as seemingly loving act of trying to resolve conflict, keep the peace, can turn into a pattern of behavior that you exhibit with everybody in your life, even how you treat yourself. And I also developed a very silent resentment, as happens with carrying other people's issues for too long. And it may seem like you can handle these situations at first, but I promise you this resentment will build up and show up in some way in your life. Maybe in your mental or physical health, or a moment where you react more aggressively than you should. You may overcompensate for your own conflicts and struggle to address them properly, being more anxiously attached to people you love, and ultimately not being able to experience things without first managing them and smoothing them over so the road doesn't get bumpy. It's okay to help those you love, but there's a clear difference in what genuine shared love or responsibility looks like. You were never supposed to be the bridge between two people who refuse to meet in the middle themselves. And at some point, it's better to recognize that no matter how much you say, how carefully you say it, or how much you try to understand both sides, you can't resolve something that does not belong to you. And you rob the people who need to resolve the conflict of the necessary development they may need. So for those who find themselves stuck in between, in limbo of people you love, understand that when somebody cares for you, they will not consistently avoid the conflict they need to address with somebody else by offloading it onto you without considering your situation. You will not feel this eternal need to please people and appeal to others' needs consistently. And so for the sake of finding this genuine love, I think it's best to avoid these kind of dynamics, because it will inevitably corrupt both the person who is in this conflict and the person who is trying to mediate. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you again for all the support. I hope you can take something valuable from my story, and I hope to see you in the future. I wish you all the best.